We'll hop in. It's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the show today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me into your audience.
Absolutely. So let's begin our journey with this before we get into your work. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives.
Mhm.
How did you get through the pandemic and how has it changed the way that you approach work today?
We were raising a big round of capital that came off the table because everything stopped. Then we started selling the company, which was going to be great, and that deal came off the table. We sent everybody home, ended up keeping everybody, growing sales, put that sale back on the table, and I stayed at that company for 3 years after that. But so we put an acquisition back on the table by a public company during COVID, and now I'm to a place. I'm not saying there's a number that couldn't convince me to go back into an office 4 or 5 days a week, but I've never heard that number, and I've heard some big numbers, and so that's from a lifestyle perspective. But that's also really changed. It's reinforced who I hire everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I did not realize. I mean, I'd always had a couple things beforehand, but like since then, I'd had a couple people sprinkled in, but it's like truly the best performers I've had since then have been people that like a mom of a special needs kid, so schedule's flexible. You couldn't give her $1 million a year to take her into an office. Project manager who got thrust into elder care, same thing when that happened. And so it's like the like COVID was actually wonderful for kind of exposing that, like, no, like the true top performers, like you meet their needs and then they'll help your business grow.
Absolutely. So let's get into your business. Let's get into what you're doing right now in 2025. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds. It's career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I help software companies and technology companies grow really big, really fast. So usually that's on marketing and sales, helping people understand what we actually do and making it really easy to say, "Oh, I have that problem." And then it's such a great experience working with the company that they have no choice but to tell their friends about it.
So let's find it. When you were 12 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your dream job?
Prosthetic surgeon at that time.
How did it all begin? How did your career begin? If we look at the timeline, how did this all begin for you?
I started my career started when I was 14. Brick and mortar stuff, doing the typical kind of lawn care stuff, but I had to form an LLC because I had 14 people working for me and I was going to have
Yeah.
to file taxes. And I got caught hacking a large number of federal servers, and my dad worked a deal for me to get a job with that on Redstone Arsenal as opposed to going to jail for that. Um, and so that both had me from the work side. I found out I was really good at selling and operations because I had this lawn care business that this, uneducated, dumb 13-year-old at the time, becoming 14, was able to sell way more than what I could provide, and then figured out the rest of it. But at the other side, I was literally hacking computer systems and doing things for Homeland Security. So that's kind of where things started, just being very technical and working.
So who's been your hero? Who's been an inspiration for you in your career?
I had a lot of bad heroes, I'd say, early on.
Yeah.
So the bad heroes were really the people that pushed that, like, hey, success looked like growing the corporate ladder as much as you could and making as much money. And so I followed that, and that was horrible for not just me, but so many people that worked on my teams. And looking back, I was like, gosh, I actually burnt out so many people and had so many great people leave because I lost the resiliency in my team trying to lead that way as well. And so since then, I've had mentors like Judson Green. He was the former president of Disney theme parks, and he was a mentor of mine for a long time. Was the CEO at our company before he retired when we went public. And so he walked me through a lot of those negative choices he had made in his life, and here's a way to do that different. And then I had a gentleman named Reggie Bradford that had founded two companies beforehand. I joined him at a third company called Vitro, starting social media management. And Reggie kind of brought me on as his right-hand person, brought me into all of these meetings, including just I worked in his office 90% of the time. So I'd hear the good and the bad discussions with his wife when he was working late and saying, "Hey, we're trying to close a $50 million round that became an acquisition by Oracle." And so I got to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we would talk about that later as well. And so like those are just some of the kind of heroes were people that have been very transparent, letting me see the good things that they've done, but not the PR version. Very much here's the negative things and things I wish I would have done better.
So, speaking of good examples, if you could meet somebody alive today, a business leader that's done really well, you could have a lunch, pick their brain that might help you on your journey. Who would you love to meet and talk to?
I actually really love to sit down with Elon Musk, but not about like any of the successes. I'd really like to sit down and just talk with him about the things he wishes that from a personal side he'd have done different. Because we've seen the PR side of that, where like he seems to be very good at his own PR, whether you agree with some of the hyperbole or not. But there's that polished version that comes out. But I've heard from some people that are in that sphere that it's like, no, like he does have a very different side when the cameras are off and he'll share those things. And I'd love to know, like, hey, somebody that has been that successful, what does that look like? Because I sat down with people that have sold companies for hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars a year, and it's like they almost all have, yes, but I wish I'd have done these things better. At a certain dollar figure, all of these other things matter more.
I've heard that about Trump. Like, I remember when Bill Maher finally sat down with them and he was like, everybody wanted to know what happened. And he said, what you guys see as a politician is totally different from what you see behind closed doors.
Yes,
Like, you know, and it's like there are these personas, and I've heard that about Elon as well. And I've seen him on interviews with Joe Rogan, and he's just a different persona than when he was in the government spotlight doing Doge work. It's just a different creation.
yeah, very much so. I mean, even on so I've been blessed to actually advise President Trump and been at the White House and host some events there. And without like the insides of that, the initial reach outs that we had when they were asking me and Margarita Mendoza to help seat, another dozen people at the table for this first large event in the East Room of the White House was like there was nothing politics related except for their only filtering thing once we were looking for certain types of business leaders was they actually proactively said we do not want anybody that's like that 1% either super anti-Trump or super pro-Trump that he could do no wrong. They're like those neither side of that spectrum would give us the advice or be the public piece that we would want.
Yeah,
And it wasn't presented as something like you could ask questions about. I was just completely shocked that like, wait a minute, that's coming out because that doesn't match what I'd
right.
seen for the media at that point.
Yeah, totally. So you've been in the room with a lot of heavy people that have made a lot of money and a lot of success. What's the most surprising thing that you've learned about being around that level, that ilk of people?
The people that have done it more than once, which is actually fairly rare. I mean, it's not that it's easy to have this one hit, but the people that have done it more than once they are very open. Even if it doesn't, even if they appear arrogant or things at other times, they're actually really humble. They hold strong ideas very open, acknowledging that they may have made a decision or see something based on false assumptions or hidden assumptions or data that they didn't have access to, and they're willing to come back and revisit that.
So what is the motivation? What has been the drive for you over the years to be as successful and highly driven as you are, and also to take care of your own soul and your family? What is that energy when that alarm clock goes off? What gets you moving?
People. I just say at the end of the day, I've worked in 11 industries, small companies, big companies. I'm better in mid-size and big companies, but I like you could put me in, literally the company waste management, and I know nothing about trash disposal, and I'd thrive in it because I care about both the people you're serving and the people that you're working with. And so like that's kind of my core thing. I mean, technically I don't have to necessarily work, but the best way to kind of help disciple and coach people is working alongside of them. And so that's the only way you really get to know somebody. It's not by, just having an executive coach that, talks to you, 1 hour every week or something.
Yeah. So let's say you had a dream tonight. You ran into the 18-year-old version of you, ready to charge out into the world, and you had a book in your hands, and it was like a big coffee table book, and you handed it to that version and said, "This is how your life turned out." Would that young version of you believe it?
I think they'd believe it, but they'd probably flip through the pages a good bit.
What advice would you give?
Uh, do not check the boxes on the people that you put around in your inner circle. That's what I did. At a certain age, I was like, you need to get married. So whoever you're dating at that time, the people that you work close with, or you people think that people are going to be successful, well, that's who you make your friends, as opposed to choosing people on the energy level, the morals, the faith. Do they want family or not? Do they have family or not? And how would they approach kind of situations? Like I was not intentional. I was intentional on who I put around my circles, but entirely in the wrong way.
So the one thing about being successful in navigating business is it requires risk. It's that backbone of entrepreneur mindset. What's the biggest risk that you've taken in your career?
Biggest risk in my career. Um, I started a technology company, one of the first influencer marketing platforms, and it ended up being really well. It sold, but most of those don't succeed. I mean, what most listeners probably don't know is 99% of the companies that raise venture capital money never even return dollars to investors, much less a real rate of return. But I knew at that point already that I was much better at mid-market and corporate life, but I was arrogant enough to go and start something because I wanted to be a founder, because that's what you see on podcasts and YouTube videos and read books about. And I did not realize how much that might peg me as an entrepreneur. And so many corporate types and boards do not want that entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So thankfully, all the companies that I continue to work with have seen my success and know where I work better. But I did not realize both how risky that the failure rate is and what that could do for the career long term.
So of everything that you've accomplished, and more importantly, evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
Being successful at home now and having kids that right now are only 6 and 4, but like already, like I work at home or our mountain property with us, and it's like they're going to know a dad that was around and that structured the life to be successful. And they're going to see that not just from me, but they're going to see that from like my peers. Like I've got a CEO right now where like I could not get in touch with him unless this something was literally on fire like 3:30 most afternoons, because he has a son that's a all-star high school golfer. And so he's literally the CEO of multiple successful companies, is out there acting as a caddy for his high school
Wow.
son so he can spend time with them. And so my kids will get to see that. So that's what I'm most proud of.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that you work with, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a servant. I mean, I wake up most days looking at how can I help people, whether the help my wife, help the people on my team, help my CEO, help our customers.
What's been your favorite customer success story? One that just warms your heart every time you think about it.
That's a great question. My favorite customer success story. Um, there's so many of them. Because been part of so many technology companies. It usually ends up coming back to the place where somebody comes back to us and they're like, it was just effortless working with you all. Like we brought you in to solve like what we thought was a little pain. And the stories just come back where people are like, this just worked. And we had to tell customers about it. I mean, I use the term when I'm onboarding customers or I'm doing prospecting calls with people and I'm like, they're like, what's your goal here, Kurt? I'm like, my goal is for you to be immaculately successful with us or a competitor. And so that like customer success stories just come abound that way.
So, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and go to the beginnings of a business, maybe the first time Walt Disney walked into an office in California and had an idea for Disneyland, Paul Allen, Bill Gates together coming up with code, Steve Jobs and Wozniak, some dynamic, Jeff Bezos, the first time he stepped out of that garage and thought he was going to change the world. What business mind would you love to have been around, a fly on the wall to watch how they did it?
Actually, somebody who wasn't successful from a worldly perspective, Nicholas Tesla.
Okay. Yeah.
What I thrive at doing is I'm a king maker or a queen maker. And so like his technology, we're just now coming back to so much of that. And we now know the history about how he was outplayed and didn't think in terms of business and how things were going to work. And to be able to like step into somebody that was at that place and be like, yeah, like I can help fill your gaps.
So, with all of this uncertainty, sometimes they talk about with the economy and things that are going on and shifts and everything, do you remain hopeful? Do you wake up hopeful about what's going on with business and how money is transferred and what you're doing for your clients. Are you hopeful?
Yeah, more hopeful than ever for the economy and like, my individual work for individuals though. It's like I am concerned that I think the failure rate, especially with AI and we continue to see technology change more and more, I think we will continue to see the failure rate for companies go up more and more. I'm seeing boards and CEOs, specifically like with AI for marketing and sales, make like horrible mistakes because they're either thinking they can fire 99% of the people on their team and do it all with AI, or they're just letting their teams work like cowboys out there. And like either of those polar things, like that brings in unbound risk to companies. And so at a individual basis, I think failure rates are going to go up. But from an economy perspective and how money transfers, I'm like, even the poor people today in name almost any country is so much wealthier than what the wealthy people were, 100 years, 200 years ago.
Absolutely. So if anybody has questions, they want to reach out, they want to see you speak, they want to hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
My personal website, Kurt Uhlir, uhlir.com, or I speak a lot on servant leadership. Literally just go to ChatGPT and type servant leadership Kurt, and you'll find me there.
Right on. I will put all these links in the show notes. Kurt, this has been absolutely illuminating. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time today. Best of luck with everything.
And thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. I should